When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: Motel in Carbondale. User: MistMix8. Posted October 3rd, 1997.
The first time I saw it, I was 16. But I felt it long before that. It always starts the same way. A nervous energy, like static crackling just beneath my skin. My ears ring. A headache blooms right between my eyes, slow and twisting, like something is burrowing inside my skull. Air turns cold, not like a breeze, but a dead, empty kind of cold. And then the smell, not quite rotten, but wrong. Then comes the silence. That's when the mist arrives. I was staying at my uncle's farm in southern Kentucky, 100 acres of rolling hills and sagging fence posts. Honestly, the place felt more like a corpse than a home. My Uncle Richard had lived alone there for as long as I could remember. Never married, never had kids, just kept the house standing and the land from turning wild. I spent a summer there helping him mend fences, clearing brush, earning a little cash. The nights were mine, though, and I'd take a lawn chair out to the back field, watch the stars, and let my thoughts drift. The night it happened, I was out in the grass with a can of Coors Light I snuck out of his icebox, staring up at a sky so thick with stars it looked like crushed glass. The air was warm and thick, heavy with the smell of damp earth. A barn owl screeched in the distance, and the cicadas hummed with their endless song. But then, just like that, everything stopped. No bugs, no breeze, no sound at all. I did notice at first, not until the static feeling crawled up my arms and into my chest. My fingers tingled. The hair on my arms stood straight up. My heart stuttered like I'd missed a step on a staircase. And then, from the corner of my eye, I saw it. A darkness spreading across the field, thick and slow like ink spilling in water. It wasn't fog. Fog moves with the air, but this didn't. It crept forward in heavy tendrils, swallowing the grass, devouring the ground like it had weight, like it was something alive. I couldn't move. I don't even remember breathing, but boy, do I remember that headache. That pulsing feeling in my skull. I knew right then, for the first time in my life, what it meant to be prey. I thought about running, but where? The house was too far. The barn was closer, but I'd have to sprint through the mist. And what if it was inside already? So I froze instead, and seconds later, it reached the base of my chair. My legs felt numb. My body screamed at me to move, to do anything, but I just sat there, watching as the darkness stretched up over my knees. It was in that chilling moment that will haunt me for the rest of my life that I saw them. Shapes in the black, shifting just beneath the surface like shadows pressed against glass. Limbs stretched and curled, hands too long, too thin, faces with hollow sockets where eyes should be, and they weren't just moving. No, they were reaching for me. A hand slipped through the blackness. Long, slender fingers stretching outward toward my shin. I heard something, a whisper maybe, or just my own panicked breathing, and my pulse slammed against my ribs before finally, my body gave me the permission to flee. I shoved out of the chair so fast it flipped backward. My beer can spilled, aluminum thudding into the dirt. I ran blind and stupid, legs pumping toward the barn because it was closer, because I didn't know what else to do. I barely made it. As I hit the barn doors, I threw myself inside and slammed them shut. I fumbled for the latch, hands shaking so bad I could barely slide the bolt into place. My breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. Then, nothing. The silence stretched on, too thick, too deep. I could still feel it, the static in my skin, the cold pressing at the edges of my senses, the piercing headache. I knew it was out there, whatever it was, waiting, drifting. What felt like hours passed, but who knows, maybe it was only minutes. Eventually, the cicadas started showing up again. The air shifted, warm and humid, carrying the scent of hay and manure. I don't know how long I stood there, but when I finally opened the doors, the mist was gone. I told myself I imagined it, that it was just some weird trick of the night, of exhaustion, of an overactive imagination. But when I stepped back outside, the chair was still overturned. My beer huddled up in the dirt. And eerily, in the patch of grass where I'd been sitting, the ground was black, not burned, not wet, just black. I didn't sleep much that summer, and as the years passed, I never saw the mist again. Honestly, didn't even think much of it. Not until last night, at least. I'm 29 now, married, living in a small house just outside Louisville. My wife, Sarah, is pregnant with our first kid. We've got a dog, a mortgage, normal lives. Well, that night, we were watching TV when it hit me. The static, the headache, the wrongness in the air. I knew before I even got up to look out the window, it was waiting for me. Immediately, my body returned to that feeling, that memory of panic. It knew how to react as if not a single second had passed since that summer. No forgetting something like this. The street outside was gone. The cars, the houses, the streetlights, everything swallowed in rolling black, just as I had feared. But Sarah, she didn't see it. She kept asking what was wrong, why I looked like I'd seen a ghost. She even got up and looked out the window with me and just seemed perplexed. I couldn't explain. Had nothing to say. I was terrified and she was just confused. Yet I watched, horrified, as the mist once again crept closer, the shapes shifting and twisting inside it, the blackness tormenting me as it grew near, and I knew full well this time would be different than that night on the farm. It wasn't just here to watch. No, it was here to take me back. Or worse, my family. Sarah, get in the car. She turned and looked at me stunned. Now, Sarah, no questions now. She nodded, showing her first signs of fear as we started hustling to the front door, and by the time my key was in the ignition, the mist was only about 20 feet away, too close for comfort. I switched in reverse and squealed out of our driveway, Sarah's body flailing back against the seat as I then threw the car into drive and stepped on the gas. That night, we drove and ended up sleeping at a motel outside of Carbondale. I don't know when the mist stopped following us because, honestly, I refuse to look in the rearview mirror, but here we are now, seemingly safe. The only problem is I have no fucking clue how to explain this to my wife, and boy, is she pissed.
Subject, Insomnia. User, Silkel. Posted, July 12, 1998.
It started as insomnia. Nights blending into one another, silence stretching into a bottomless void where sleep refused to find me. The clock's red digits would mock me relentlessly from the nightstand. 2:34 a.m., 3:12 a.m., 4:01 a.m. Each blink of the numbers became a pulse, counting down to an unknown deadline. So I started driving. My '86 Chevy Nova, its metallic blue dulled by years of neglect, became my midnight sanctuary. The rhythm of the asphalt beneath worn tires calmed my nerves in a way no bed ever could. The monotonous hum of the engine lulling my anxiety. I drift through empty neighborhoods, the windows down, feeling the city's cool breath wash over me like a moonlit baptism. At first, like I said, it was peaceful, soothing even. If I couldn't sleep, at least my soul would get a little rest as I meandered my way through the streetlights, spilling amber puddles onto darkened roads. But after a few months in, I started noticing things. Little things that unsettled the fragile tranquility I'd come to rely on. Each and every night, I discovered there was a woman standing motionless on the corner of Maple and 7th at exactly 3:03 a.m. by the old Brooks warehouse. She wore a pale yellow dress that fluttered without wind, her face perpetually turned away from me, hidden beneath a cascade of dark hair. I saw her at least a dozen times before ever clocking it, but when I did, she stood out like a sore thumb, a glitch in the system. Then there was the gas station at the end of town, abandoned since '89, its neon open sign cracked and weathering, the moon's glow shining through the old windows, casting a sickly light over rusted pumps and empty parking spaces. Some nights I'd swear I saw shadows moving inside the convenience store, silhouetted against grimy windows. Once, I even stopped and waited to see it, but the shadows never showed up when I wanted. Yet, they seemed to always be there when I wasn't looking. Over the course of these drives, I found so many of these, I guess you'd call them oddities. From a house that appeared to be a different color every night, to the same cat darting out in front of my car every single time at 1:17 a.m., no matter where in town I was. As you might expect, sleep never came, but a burgeoning obsession with the night filled that void. I'd return home, drained yet restless, scribbling notes about street corners, alleyways, and those who inhabited them under the cloak of darkness. My walls soon became a patchwork of madness, maps connected by strings of desperate intuition, Polaroids pinned next to handwritten observations. What can I say? It got a little out of hand. One night, after passing the old Cineplex that always seemed to be consumed in some sort of mist, my insomnia led me back to Maple and 7th. Well, that's a lie. It wasn't the insomnia anymore. Like I said, it was the obsession. I parked the Nova and let it idle quietly as the dashboard clock ticked toward 3:03 a.m. Well, she was already there, waiting. Heart hammering, I stepped out onto the pavement. "Hello, ma'am, are you lost?" I croaked out against the silence, my voice so filled with fear it sounded foreign even to my own ears. Then, slowly and deliberately, her head turned in such a way as I can best describe as a toy that had been wound up and just let loose on the floor. Meanwhile, the rest of the world seemed frozen, the moonlight framing her face, pale, hollow, eyes sunken into endless black pools, her lips parted, releasing a whisper that echoed impossibly loud in my mind. "I've been waiting." Panic seized me. I stumbled back to the Nova, engine roaring to life, but the town around me had shifted. Streets twisted into unfamiliar patterns. Houses loomed taller, distorted. The road stretched endlessly forward, trapping me in an infinite maze. It felt like the walls were closing in on me, but I was outside without such boundaries. Sleep, I now understood, wasn't avoiding me, it was protecting me. But the insomnia had won. Night after night, I drove deeper into the city's shadowed corners, each drive revealing more about a reality hidden from waking eyes. I began tracking patterns, mapping the streets meticulously, each route etched itself into my memory until the city became a labyrinth imprinted within my mind. New sightings occurred with unsettling regularity. A boy holding a red balloon beneath a street lamp that flickered precisely every 7 seconds. An elderly man repeatedly crossing the same empty intersection, forever caught mid-stride. I documented everything, compiling those details into my obsessive journals cluttered with sketches and hurried descriptions of apparitions. My apartment, once a refuge from the outside world, was now transformed into a chaotic archive of a sleepless wanderer. And so, the boundaries of my reality started to blur. The lines separating wakefulness from nightmare dissolving steadily. On these journeys, Time lost its meaning. Hours passed in a heartbeat, yet minutes stretched eternally. Days blurred into nights, indistinguishable in their twilight monotonies. My reflection in the rearview mirror grew gaunt and hollow-eyed, mirroring the shadowy figures that now populated my existence. My encounters escalated, growing bolder, invading my daily life. Shadows lingered at the edges of my vision. Whispers trailed me down grocery store aisles, and silent figures crowded around my bed when I did attempt to rest, their presence heavy and suffocating. Then, last night, as I sat in my living room with my dinner, obsessively planning the route I would take, skimming through one of my journals and etching out a path back to a field that seemed to be inhabited by some sort of will-o'-the-wisp flickering light, I fell asleep. That's right, I just nodded off right there on my sofa. This morning, I woke up fully refreshed. It was almost unnerving, like my body didn't even know how to deal with the energy. My heart was full. There was a skip in my step and a warmth in my soul. Is it all finally over? I guess we'll find out tonight.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.